Welcome back to the Hard Knocks Guitar Shop. My name's Will Kelly. I'm the monthly repair columnist for Vintage Guitar Magazine, author, builder, luthier, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, today what I want to talk to you about are inlays on fingerboards of guitars. Usually that's a very complex skill to acquire, but today I'm going to show you a really easy way to upgrade these standard white plastic dull-looking fingerboard dots with beautiful figured shell abalone. And we're going to do it with a very small amount of common household tools, nothing specialized, a little bit of common sense and some patience. So if you're game, I'm going to show you how to do something really special with a standard plain old neck. Let's get started. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is we need to figure out what is the diameter of these dots so we can order some appropriately sized replacements. This is a digital caliper. This is something I highly recommend you get for yourself. Two reasons. First off, it's a very accurate way to measure even small things. The other thing it does is it has a mode button here, and the mode button enables you to go from millimeters to English measurements. So it's a great way to use this as a conversion tool. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and flip it on, zero it, and then we're going to just measure the diameter of these dots, and they are 6 millimeters. Okay, 5.9. So 6 millimeters. Now you can go online to several different online suppliers and order these in a variety of materials, gold pearl. We're going to go with figured shell abalone. If you'll count up the number of dots on your fingerboard, you'll find that most guitars have 10 dots, with each position possessing a single dot, except for the 12th fret octave, which has got 2 as a marker. So I went ahead and ordered some 6 millimeter abalone inlays from an online supplier. These are about 60 cents a piece. They're not cheap, but they're not expensive either. But the abalone is just beautifully figured. And as you can see, they're about 1/16 of an inch thick and 6 millimeters, which is what we had measured the white plastic dot markers at. So there's 10 of those, and we're going to get these into the fingerboard in place of those dull white plastic ones. Let me show you what kind of tools you're going to need though. You'd be surprised at how very few tools this requires, and most of these tools are very common household implements. So this is what you're going to need. Some single-edged straight razor blades, and I really insist that you buy American-made blades. They are so much more finely polished, and they're very high quality. They don't leave striations like inexpensive foreign-made blades do in the wood when you use just scrapers, which is what we're doing here. Of course, you need a good set of calipers, some good tweezers to handle the dots with since they're so small, and you're also working with super glue, which you don't want to get stuck to your fingers. Here's some medium set super glue from StuMac. This is luthier grade super glue. Don't use the stuff you buy at the dollar store. What we really need is something that's going to give us a very set time to finish, and then a very smooth and clear glossy finish when buffed out. You're going to need a 3 millimeter drill bit. This is half the diameter, because remember the dots were 6 millimeters. So you're going to need something in the range of about half the diameter of the dots, and this is what we're going to use to drill out the white pearl with. And then for finishing, you're going to need a couple of different grades of fine sandpaper, 600, 1000, 1500. So we've got a wide range here, and these are ultra fine, which will give the tops of the abalone shell inlays very glossy, polished tops. So it's not a whole lot that we need to go buy or work with, but this is what's going to make the magic. So let's get started. What we're going to do now is drill a hole in the center of each one of these dots to help us work the dot back out of the hole without disturbing the surrounding wood. If you've got a sharp awl, that would be a great way just to carefully mark as close as you can. It doesn't have to be dead, but just mark the center of each dot, and that'll give the drill bit something to bite into without skittering along and possibly damaging, the wood on the surrounding fingerboard. That's the one thing you really want to maintain here, is the integrity of the hole and the surrounding wood on the fingerboard. You don't want to leave any dots, dings, scratches, things like that. So go ahead and mark the rest of these, and then we'll drill. You definitely want to be careful when drilling the dots so that you don't go through the backing wood and into the truss rod cavity. So basically what you want to do is mark off about 1/8 of an inch. Take a piece of tape, this is just standard painter's tape, wrap it around the bit, and we'll use that as a depth stop so that we only drill through the inlay itself and we don't hit the truss rod or drill through the wood backing the inlay. We want to keep the depth of the inlay exactly the same. So there's our depth stop, and now we're going to start drilling. Okay, so we've got our drill bit set up, we've got our hole marked in the center, and now we're just going to lightly drill through. You can feel the bit catch when it goes through the inlay. There it goes. So there we go. We've got a nice drilled hole right in the center of our inlay that goes through the inlay but not through the wood. And just going to repeat this 9 more times. Okay, now we've drilled out all 10 holes, as you can see. They don't have to be roughly in the center, but it helps. So we've just worked through that and drilled all these. Now what you want to do, this is kind of neat, is there's the drill bit that we used. Now let's go ahead and just take this out of the chuck, and we're going to flip it around. So we've got the drill bit flipped around with the smooth butt end. Just going to insert that into the hole we just drilled and start wiggling it around. And you can feel the glue kind of pop loose. And when you do that, just keep pulling out slightly while you're doing this. And before you know it, there's your inlay. The hole's still unmarked. There's a little bit of glue residue and a little bit of maybe a bit of plastic, but we'll clean that out. But the hole itself is perfect. So what we're going to do is just repeat this 10 or 9 more times. Okay, if you'll notice in the bottom of each hole we've still got some glue particulate there. So what you want to take is a small flat-bladed screwdriver. Don't use a razor blade knife or anything like that because it's going to end up splintering, cutting into the wood and chipping. You want a dull blade. This stuff isn't that hard to get out. Just sit there and kind of roll it around in the hole. Don't scratch up your fingerboard. And, you know, there you go. We've gotten all the glue, all the plastic bits, everything out of the hole, and have not disturbed the hole's perimeter. Now, remember that real fine grade sandpaper I told you you'd need? We're going to take some of the 1000 grit, and basically what we want to do, fold it so that you're not impacting the frets on either side, is just really lightly sand across the top of the hole. This is going to remove any burrs, any chips, any splits, smooth the edge of the wood so that when the inlay gets in there it'll sit in flush. Okay, so go ahead and do that 9 more times. And then we'll be ready to inlay the abalone. We're going to have to sort through our abalone dots. Abalone is a two-sided material and the sides can vary very much. So for example, here's a beautiful piece right here that's got a nice figure in it, but when you flip it around, it's completely blank. There's nothing on it. So look on both sides of each dot to make sure that you pick the optimal side to inlay. Alright, here's all 10 pieces of our abalone, and we've got them sorted out kind of that makes sense literally. Now we're going to take a piece of masking tape and just kind of lay it right here. And this is what we're going to use to place the abalone dots on so that they don't fly off, you know, we don't lose any, and we keep them in the correct order that we've carefully chosen for them. So one at a time, just take each dot, place it onto the tape. This is a great way to secure these little slippery boogers because they will fly around on you, trust me. And when they do, it's not very pleasant. You spend half a day on the floor in your workshop or your den or wherever you're working trying to find it, and it's frustrating, especially when you lose one. In fact, I recommend ordering 1 or 2 extra when you do a job because you never know if all the pieces are going to match, and B, you might lose one. So there, we've got all 10 pieces laid out for us to use on the tape. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our super glue and we're going to go ahead and lay a bit of super glue in the base of each hole and let that dry. What that's going to do is provide us with a really firm, level foundation for the inlay that's coming in. If you'll notice on these, on my bottle here, I've got a real fine, called a whip tip, that basically you can buy from StuMac, and it fits onto the end of the bottle of super glue, giving you complete control, very precise drops. So what we're going to do is go ahead and squeeze out a little bit here. If you notice, I'm not getting any on the surrounding fingerboard. And we're just going to lay that in and go ahead and put a little bit, whoops. If you do get a little, just go ahead and wipe it off the best you can, because we're going to be sanding and surfacing these boards anyway, so it's not going to really make a big difference. Okay? And then let's just keep on filling these up. And you're not filling them all the way to the top. You want to leave about a 1/16 of an inch, but what you really want to do is make the bottom flat. And this also soaks into the wood as well and gets you a lot better protection against moisture and things like that. So let's just go ahead and finish all these up, and then we're going to let them dry for about an hour. You know, normally super glue doesn't require an hour to dry, but these are a little thicker bits and drops, so we want to make sure they're completely dry before we lay in the inlays. Okay, we've got all 10 of our holes filled with super glue to a level bottom, about a 1/16 of an inch from the top. The tops have been lightly sanded, very, very lightly sanded around the edges to remove any splinters. And now we're just going to let this dry for about an hour. Alright, so we're ready to start inlaying the abalone. Okay, something else you may want to try, and I really highly recommend this if you want easy installation and professional looks, which everybody does. You get a small needle file. This is a very fine file. You can find them in sets, usually of 5 to 10, and they come in different sizes. This is just a small flat needle file. And what I use this for, let's go ahead and take this first inlay. You know, the inlays are perfectly cylindrical. In other words, their sides are square to the top and the bottoms, okay? So what I like to do is, once you've picked which side you're going to use, and this is a beautiful blue and gold side with some nice figuring in it, flip it over, and then take the needle file and just easily and lightly round the sharp edges off the bottom face edge. Don't take off too much. Just a couple of whacks is really all you need. And what you're doing here is making this easier to fit in initially to the hole. These holes are exactly drilled at 6 millimeters, and these inlays are exactly cut at 6 millimeters, so it should be a very tight fit. But by rounding or chamfering the edge of the bottom of the inlay, what you're doing is actually making the effective diameter smaller, and it should seat squarely into the hole easily on the initial application, which is what you want. You don't want it to get cocked in the hole. You don't want it to get angled in any way. You want it to be flat in and evenly put with the surface of the fingerboard. So once we've done all that, flip it back around, and there's our inlay. Okay? So I'll tell you what I'm going to do now is we're going to go ahead and put a little more super glue back into the hole, and then we're going to lay this in there. And I'm going to show you a special tool. Special. This is a nail punch. Everybody's got them as just a common nail punch. I'm prone to flipping things around backwards and using them. This has got an 8 millimeter circular end within square sides to it that are rounded slightly. Okay? This is perfect for seating the dots because it's actually slightly larger than the diameter of the abalone dot, but it's large enough so that it will not go into the hole, so it seats the top of the thing flush with the fingerboard, and this will fit in between every fret position there is. So nice hard steel, easy to use. I use it for a setting tool. So let's go ahead and get us started with this abalone inlay and this hole.